What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the eCommerce Influence Podcast. My name is Austin Brawner, and I am excited today to bring you somebody who I've long wanted to interview. His name is Sean DSouza. Sean is the author of the Brain Audit, one of my favorite marketing books, and a book that I have shared and given to many clients. I think I initially heard about this book maybe a year and a half ago, and I reread it multiple times. There's some really revolutionary things in that book that'll help you to figure out why you're not selling as much as you should. It's an excellent book. Sean, we've actually bringing him into the coalition. He's going to be doing a training on May 11th called Buy Your Life Back: How to Raise Prices and Not Lose Customers. I think Sean's one of the most articulate and well-spoken people I've met in the field of marketing and the psychology of buying and why people buy things. So I'm honored to have him on the show. I think you're going to enjoy this episode massively. Let's welcome Sean to the show. And if you are not a member of the coalition and you want to join, head over to brandgrowthexperts.com so you can get access to his training we're doing on May 11th called Buy Your Life Back: How to Raise Prices and Not Lose Your Customers. Without further ado, let's welcome Sean to the show. Sean, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Me too.
I will tell you, man, I've purchased your book for probably the Brain Audit for probably 50 of my clients and shipped it to them. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful book. I've reread it multiple times, mostly bouncing around, coming up with ideas, workshopping with it, being like, our part of our page is a little funky, so I'll go back through it. And, so I really appreciate it. And I think you've done an excellent job of distilling it down into a very clear message.
Thank you.
The thing I want to start with that I think has been interesting is your website is psychotactics.com. And I've read I've gone through this. And the more I've gotten to know you through your website, I think that it might be the biggest mismatch between the name of the URL and the style of the person. And a lot of it's Psychotactics, but a lot of the stuff you're talking about is actually like very Zen, almost like. How did you come up with the title psychotactics.com?
What we had this scenario where I was sending out a newsletter this is almost 21 years ago now. And it was called Psychological Tactics That Will Help You With Your Business or something like that. And back then, like everybody who starts out, we wanted to make $1 million. And so the name of the company was $1 Million. And I wasn't getting anybody to sign up to do any consulting with me. And I kept wondering why. And anyway, I was sitting with this friend of mine, Eugene, and he said, you already call yourself Psychological Tactics, and you already have a newsletter called Psychotactics. So why not call your company Psychotactics, which is what I did. And now these are the very early days of the internet. I mean, this is before YouTube and just after kind of, Google and stuff. So Google starts picking us up and people go, oh, I wonder what Psychotactics is all about. But a lot of people said, this is a really bad choice. They said, this is a really bad choice. You shouldn't call yourself Psychotactics. But I was like, okay, I don't care.
I think it's funny because I remember, I think the first person who told me about your book was a friend named Kurt Elster, who's also been on the podcast multiple times. And he was like, this is such a good book for business owners who are like redesigning their product page and they're kind of going through and trying to think about their value propositions. And so I found your blog. Mm-hmm. I started checking around, and then I started to resonate really with a lot of your philosophy. And you have a podcast titled "The 3-Month Vacation," which is a great headline. I think there's very few people that don't immediately say, "Ooh, I wish I had a 3-month vacation." And one of the things that you'd mentioned on your site is you've taken a 3-month vacation pretty much every year since 2004.
That's correct.
In our society, that's relatively unique. What do you think stops people from taking a 3-month vacation?
Just to clarify for anyone listening, we don't take 3 months at a time. We did, and it was a disaster. You eat too. Yeah. The first problem is just eating, because if you're out traveling for 3 months, that's 3 meals, that's 90 meals, 270 meals outside, which is full of oil and butter and sugar and everything else. So that's kind of a big problem. But the 3-month vacation started partially because I wanted to do something which was impossible. I moved from India to New Zealand, and I wouldn't get paid on time in India. I would get paid 6 months, a year. Some people would not pay at all. The second thing was that even though my wife and I got married, we thought, okay, after we get married, we'll take all these trips, and we never took any of the trips. So I ran into a friend of mine, Julia, and Julia used to pre-book all her holidays. And I thought, wow, if I just buy book the hotel or book the flight or book whatever, then I have to go. And that's kind of where it started. But then eventually I learned that, we kind of try to fudge it. We go we won't take 3 months, we'll take 2 and something. And we got more tired. And in those years, we earned a lot less. Now, those are the beginning years. Now we've kind of kept it steady. We decided in 2007 that our income would be 3 times, so we needed X amount, and we would have 3 times that, and we would stop. So the point is, to answer your question, because I didn't answer your question, people are afraid they'll lose customers. They're afraid they'll lose revenue, which is the same thing that I had. I was a cartoonist back then. I was afraid I would lose revenue, I'd lose customers. And most importantly, I would get the customers to go to competition, which is exactly what used to happen. I used to go away, I used to come back, and they go, oh, we had this job, so I lost the money. But then they go, oh, we found this other cartoonist. And I go, oh, shit.
But it changed. So do you credit the fact that you put it kind of front and center as part of your philosophy as one of the reasons that it maybe attracts more people to you than drives them away?
I don't really care about what people think that much, which is always an advantage. I just care about what makes me happy, because what I've noticed, and this is the Zen part coming out now, is that angry people get angry and happy people make other people happy. So I figured I can't be grumpy and make other people happy. That just doesn't work. So I'm going to be happy. I'm going to make myself happy. And you have this in aircraft, right? They say first put on your own oxygen mask and then look at the other person. And that's kind of where I started. It was I need to be happy first, because otherwise I'm not going to make anybody else happy.
I love it. There's one of my friends, Carson Finkel, who listens to the podcast, and he's been a client as well. He thinks of it like a champagne tower. And, a champagne tower, all these glasses all the way stacked up. Most people think of themselves as the bottom of the champagne tower, and they fill everybody else's up first. It's when in reality, the most efficient way to do that is to put yourself at the top, fill yourself and let it spill over into everybody else. And the more you fill yourself up, the more other people can fill up as well, which I totally resonate with. And one of the reasons I connected kind of with your blog and your mindset. I want to transition a little bit and talk about some of the things, one of the things that you have written about extensively, podcasts about extensively, which is this idea of why people, customers, clients buy and why they don't, which is the whole idea behind the Brain Audit. I guess I'll start with just asking the question, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see businesses making when selling to their customers?
So essentially, even when we go back to the Brain Audit, if you take the bird's eye view, what you get is this two-part thing, which is, or 3 parts, which is the first part is attraction, the second part is risk, and the third part is what makes you different, what makes you unique. And I think that the biggest problem that people make is they don't understand. They can do the attraction bit, They can even possibly do the uniqueness bit, but they don't understand how much risk is involved. And recently I've been into photography quite a lot. And, if you approach a stranger and you start to take a picture, immediately they go like that. Or, why are you taking my picture? If you've been speaking to that person, it doesn't matter if you knew them before or not, but if you've been speaking to them for just a little while and you go, oh, do you mind if I take a picture? And usually it's okay. So what we're always dealing with, whether it's online or offline, is always a factor of risk. And people don't pay enough attention to how risky it seems to the other person when they're dealing with you.
It's a very interesting point. What are some ways so diving into the risk side of things, what are some ways that people can, maybe some unorthodox ways? I mean, everyone's got kind of the normal idea of risk, which is like money back guarantee, right? Especially in the US, that's incredibly common. What are some other ways that you can think about risk and minimizing risk for people to increase the trust level that they have before transacting with you?
It depends on whether you've got existing clients or not. So for instance, say you bought an Android phone before, or you bought an Apple before, then the risk is reduced. You've got a new phone, you're going, but what about, these issues?
Yeah.
But let's assume that you're dealing with someone that you don't know. This is a stranger. The 3 most critical things they're looking for is, do you really know what I'm on about? So they're looking at all of these objections. They're looking at so say you're selling a burglar alarm and they're going, well, I already have a burglar alarm, or I already had a burglar alarm. So they're kind of scoping you out to see whether you know what are you talking about? Like who are you selling to? What are you talking about? So that's the objections become the crux of things, and people don't spend enough time bringing up the objection and then reducing or removing the objection. What they tend to think is, well, if I don't bring it up, they won't know, and that'll be fine. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the testimonials. Now, strangely, objections and testimonials are linked to each other. So what people think of as testimonials are just like, oh, we had you have a workshop. That was a great workshop and stuff like that. But in reality, testimonials are just objections on the flip side of the coin. So when you look at, say people say, the workshop was too long, they had a lousy forum, they had a blah, blah, blah. And you look at all the reasons why people would object. And then you get the testimonials of those people that we thought it was a lousy forum, but this is what we found, and this is the result we got. So I would say there are lots of things that constitute risk, which is objections, testimonials, risk reversal, as you said, money back guarantee or whatever. But if you just focused on one thing, which is what are the things that people object to, and yet you're doing it. So why are you doing it? You're doing it for a reason. So why not go out there and get testimonials that tell people why you're doing what you're doing? So find the objections and then find the testimonials that negate those objections. And that reduces risk to a huge, considerable amount.
That resonated with me massively when I was reading through the Brain Audit. And we actually went out and we changed we went out and looked at all our testimonials and revamped them based on that messaging and got much more powerful testimonials. I think it's also the same reason why right now, what's very popular in Facebook advertising with a lot of my clients is user-generated content, where they go out and they get content from people talking about their products. And then at kind of the top of the funnel, they'll use this person, whether they're an influencer or a micro influencer, who will be talking about the product. And what I find that's interesting is the ones that are usually really effective are the way that you describe them, where it's, I've tried everything, literally everything, and nothing has worked until I found this. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. And that connects with people, but not bringing up your point about, it's very counterintuitive, right? You talked about, I think it's reverse testimonials is the way you describe it in the book.
Yep.
And it's because it's counterintuitive. People want to seem to lead with the most positive information that they possibly can.
Yeah. It actually, what we are is skeptical. You buy a frying pan and you're going, well, I already have a frying pan, or I've already bought a frying pan. You buy a fridge. A lot of the why do we do all this research? I mean, we go to buy an app that's $1, and we read through 10 testimonials. Come on, it's $1, right? So why are we doing this? And that's because at some level, first of all, we want the app to work to our benefit. We don't want it to clutter the phone or do whatever, on the computer. And the secondly, we don't want to feel foolish in our own brains. Nobody else knows that you've spent the $1. Nobody else knows you're spending that. But it's all of this time, because it's not always money. And this kind of feeds in with that risk reversal thing, which is that a money back guarantee is not always the case. You have to understand what is the real risk that people feel. So for instance, supposing you're doing a course and you go, well, what if I get stuck? Or supposing you're at a workshop and you go, what happens if this happens? And that kind of becomes the bigger risk than anything else. I mean, in the days when we used to send out CDs and books and stuff like that, people would go, they wouldn't open the book because they thought if I open the book and it gets, soiled, then I can't return it. Now, we would say, we'd give them a lawn, you've read this probably, but we'd give them a lawnmower guarantee. We'd say, take the lawnmower and run it over the CDs and run it over the books and then put it in a box and send it back. And so that was the risk. The risk was, I don't want to open this. Clients will tell you, a lot of the problems actually arise from the fact that we write our own sales letters and that we don't let clients write those sales letters. We don't talk to them. Because they tell you, this is the kind of risks that I'm feeling. These are the kind of objections I have. This is, you ask a client, well, what kind of testimonial would you like to see on the website? And they will go, I would like a testimonial that said that this frying pan doesn't get all of my pizza stuck to the pan. That's what I would like to see.
Yes.
Okay, so there you have it. So why are you sitting there and writing this, this is coated with whatever. They don't want to know the coated thing. They just don't want the pizza to stick to the pan.
And that's usually from them. I had interviewed somebody named Val Geisler, who is a great copywriter. And she said, I'm not a copywriter, I'm a copy paster.
Yeah.
I'm going and I'm looking on Amazon and I'm trying to find what people are telling me. Yeah. And then I go from there, which is very interesting. I would love to dive into one of the other things that I found fascinating about the Brain Audit, which is uniqueness.
Yes.
And I guess the first question is, why is it important for businesses to have a uniqueness factor?
Well, because if you go through the Brain Audit, what you find is there are like 7 different elements. So it starts off with, the first part is the attraction. It is, am I the person? So that's the target profile. Are you solving the problem? No. Do you know what my problem is? Do you have the solution? So that's like qualification. That's the qualification phase. Then you go through, now that I've qualified myself, what are the risks? So there's objections, there's testimonials, risk reversal. And when you do that, what you've done is you've set up the customer to buy something, but not from you, just to buy something. So they've understood the concept, and then they go, why you? Now, supposing we automatically assume that the uniqueness needs to be for something, maybe like a swimming pool. So why are you selling a cheap swimming pool? You don't ask people why you're selling a cheap swimming pool, but you could ask, why are you selling an expensive swimming pool? Why are you selling a tile that's 3 times the cost of the other tile, which is what we had to do when we were doing the bathroom. I'm buying the tile. I'm going, there are 100, and we're not even talking about another store. We're talking about the same store and one tile versus the other tile. And I'm going, why should I buy this tile? He goes, okay, you're going to put these tiles in, and sometime during this week, you're going to drop something on it. Now, you can buy the cheaper tile, and guess what's going to happen? It's going to chip. And then you have to get the tile guy in, and you have to replace that tile, and then you're going to drop something next week. So what's happening is 3 times is not 3 times at that point in time. The uniqueness is just telling me, why should I buy it from you instead of somebody else? And that means that you put some thought into creating that kind of product. We bought some really cheap plates. They call them scratch-proof plates. And we bought this like 7 years ago. My wife was really irritated with somehow the plates that get scratched drive her crazy. So she saw the scratch-proof plates, and she would have bought it for 5 times the price. But 7 years later, 7 years later, so she's only like, she's got this radar that's scanning for scratch-proof, scratch-proof, scratch-proof. Now, that is where you already have something in mind, where you already, someone already has a problem, they're searching for scratch-proof, and they find it. The other day I was watching YouTube, and this guy came up with something to do with tennis. And I don't play tennis, and I don't care about tennis. And he's like, the reason why all that coaching isn't working is because you can't see. And I'm like, what do you mean by you can't see? And it's really fascinating. I don't know his website, but I took screenshots because I want to put it in the presentation. But he goes into this uniqueness of his method, which shows you how to see the ball in advance so that you can get into position and return it on time. And he just goes on. So, when you take 100 coaches and they go, oh, we'll improve your game. And then this guy goes, they will all improve your game, but my guy will still beat you because he can see better than your guy. Now you have to ponder.
Who are you going to go with?
Yeah.
Who are you going to go with?
Maybe you won't go with him. Maybe you're slightly skeptical. This is where the testimonials come in. Yes. I could not see, now I can see, that kind of thing. Seems really bizarre to see, but now I can see. So that kind of, testimonials, uniqueness comes in 2 flavors. One is where people are looking for something and you're signaling that. Or secondly, you have a system or you have a method that is different. They don't know what they're looking for, but when they see it, they go, yep, that's kind of the problem.
I love all these examples because you can go in kind of a loop which is when I was describing how I used the Brain Audit when I was going through. You can open it up and kind of bounce around and address one aspect of your business and move. And you might even assess that part of your business, I'm doing well in the attraction phase, but I'm not doing well at all further down on the uniqueness side of things. And I'm converting all these people into customers, but not my customers.
Yep.
Where I'm telling them this incredible story about why they should do something. And then I don't have a unique reason why they should pick me. I find that very interesting on Amazon. And one of the challenges of people selling on Amazon is that you may go out and educate a market, and then you get to Amazon and it's like all these competitors are next to each other.
Correct.
And you're now have to stand out in an environment that it's much more challenging to stand out in, where it's like brought down to how many stars you can get on your product that you're selling. And I mean, there's still some of the same elements there, but it's very, very, it's challenging. Yeah, it's interesting to see how you can use all these things together. I think one thing I thought was interesting on the uniqueness factor, how do people figure out what is unique? They might be sitting there listening to this being like, well, we're not that unique. How do they figure that out?
Right. So there are many ways to figure out, but probably the best way to do it is what I do is whenever someone has a product or a service, I get them to write 60 bullet points, 60 features, right? Just 60 features. So you take a camera, you take this, write 60, and probably you'll stop at 7 for this or 8 or whatever, but you try to write 60. And then eventually you go like, why did I even create this? And there is usually a reason why you are doing this, which is completely different from everybody else. And you've got that passion. Maybe it's just this handle. Maybe you don't really care about this. Maybe it's just the handle and the way you've got this handle, so that every time, because I have another one and it vacuum seals and I have to fight with it all the time. So the point is that this guy who is in the tennis thing, he saw that people were making this mistake constantly because they couldn't see the ball. I don't think that uniqueness comes to you right away. I think that what you have to do is just put a stake in the ground. We're unique for this reason. And then people go, oh, no, wait a second. You're unique for this other reason.
Interesting.
Yeah. So some of the factors of uniqueness is it's very difficult when you're creating something, you're too close to it, whether it's a course or you're selling a product or you're selling, it looks like I've got like 5 lights now in this room and all the lights are the same. How do I know that it's any better? Well, why did I create the light in the first place? Why am I selling this light in the first place? And then you go out to the audience and you say, this is the reason why we're selling this light. And they come back and go, yep, that's the reason. And when you get that echoing, so you can go through your testimonials and you'll find something that recurs all the time. So let's say you've got a product already in the marketplace and you've got testimonials. Look through those testimonials and you'll find that people say something similar. So when, for instance, when I'm looking for houses, like Airbnb to rent, I will go and look for the word quiet, and I'll go right through the whole bunch of them. And that's when you know that's quiet. Now you take that and you isolate it and you make that the uniqueness. You go, there are 50 houses in this area, but this is the quietest of them all. And the people that are interested in quiet will go there. The people who want the noise will go some other place. So that's one of the ways to find uniqueness. You've already got a product, you've already got testimonials, comb through the testimonials. Look for what people are repeatedly saying. There's a pattern there. If it's a new product, that's more difficult. Put it out there in the market. See what, just tell the first client you met, this is the reason why I created it. And let them object and tell you, hey, no. The reason why I bought this and the reason why I use it is for this reason. And then stay with it and see how many others say it as well.
That's very interesting. I think your point about the Airbnb, actually, that would be a pretty good business to make if you just decided that you were going to try to market very quiet Airbnbs. I feel like you'd attract the right people as well.
Yeah. So there are lots of things that, like we talked about, combing through the testimonials or just giving it to the client and saying, this is what's unique about the product, and them going, no, this is the reason why it's unique. And the third way is to just come up with something that is kind of what Apple does all the time. They go like, to hell with you. And we are going to do this. We're going to make, like they've just launched this iMac now, which is like just thicker than an iPhone. And it's like, we don't care that you don't care. We're just going to do something that's so unique that you're going to pay attention. We're going to put 10,000 songs in your pocket. We're going to take a computer and put it in an envelope. We're just going to do something that's totally bizarre. I'll give you an example of this. We have workshops across the world. One of the features of the workshop is that 2/3 of the time I'm not speaking. So you're at the pool or you're somewhere else. That's the uniqueness of the workshop. And the reason why I came up with that was when I used to sit at the workshop, I'm always looking at the exit sign. It's like, when can I go out? When can I go to the loo? When can I go eat something? I don't really want to listen to the slides. I just want a result. So if you can give me the result in 1/3 of the time and I can just go 2/3 of the time wasting my time or talking to someone. It is bizarre how many people go to workshops because there's a lovely sauna, because they get to meet people. That's the reason. I mean, they can get the information online. What's the point of you having a workshop where you keep droning on forever? So we decided, we're going to have a workshop.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the times you can just go, you know what? I really think that we should have and this is what we used to do. We used to have in the workshop itself, 1/3 of the time, we'd have what we call like a scavenger hunt or a treasure hunt. And you have all these adults running through the city trying to find stuff. It's the highlight of their workshop. I mean, it's not that you're ignoring the fact that they're there to learn. They're there to learn copywriting or article writing or whatever it is that goal still stays in place. How are you going to achieve that and let them have fun? And that's kind of what we do.
I resonate with that. We do we host our workshops the first night. We take people axe throwing.
Exactly.
So we'll go and drink beer and throw axes. And it's like a full-on experience that takes everyone out of their comfort zone. And they're like, everyone's a beginner at axe throwing unless you somehow grew up deep in the woods. And it's a great way to connect.
It also starts up the question, like, if these guys are crazy enough to take us axe throwing instead of sitting in a workshop showing us slides, it means that they're comfortable going through the whole process of teaching us. And it doesn't, it's not just stuff for the sake of stuff. It's stuff that kind of shows that you're comfortable with what you're selling in terms of products or services as well.
Yes. You have such a strong mastery over this, and you can tell that you've spent a lot of time thinking about why people buy stuff and why clients buy, why customers buy. What is your motivation? Why is this something that you spent so much time focused on?
Well, it's frustrating to begin with. It's frustrating when someone says that they're going to buy something from you. So one of the main things about life is identity. And that is when you sell something, even as a kid, if you do a little card and you give it to someone else and they go, wow, this is such a lovely card, it gives you a sense of identity, it gives you a sense of being something. So in effect, selling is a transfer of enthusiasm from one person to another. It is giving something. And the fact that we have a transaction, that there's money, is irrelevant. What you really want is for the other person to accept it at some level, to be happy with it, to want to come back and go, can you do me another card? Can you bake me another cake? If we took money out of the equation, we would really be happy baking more cakes, making more cards, doing stuff like that. And money makes it interesting because now there's that extra challenge. I have to also get you to pay me to do this. And so the absence of someone buying something from you or buying into something is rejection. It means I don't like what you're doing. I don't like, and when people back away at the last minute, it causes a lot of self-doubt. It's like, maybe my product is not good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this is the wrong time. And you start spiraling in all different directions. And often it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the product. It's just what you're saying and the sequence in which you're saying it. And I give an example like this in live workshops when we talk at the Brain Audit. I go, supposing I told you like, this is in times of vacation, but supposing I give all expenses vacation for you and 4 of your friends, and then you could spend up to $10,000 and you could stay in the best hotels. And then I say this to you in a language that you don't understand. So what we have here is a situation where it's a really good deal and you're still not accepting it. And so there's this like, have I said something wrong? No. The way in which you've proposed it, the way in which you put it, and that's kind of what the Brain Audit really talks to you about, is that the reason why you want people to buy is they're not just buying, they're buying into something, they're buying into you, they're buying into your idea, they like you, they like your product, and it makes you feel better. I mean, even as a kid, let alone as an adult.
It also unlocks your power in whatever change and the ability you have to change the world in whatever way that you want to change it.
Yeah.
It's interesting when there are people who are powerful people or people who have powerful ideas who don't have the ability to package them and sell them to somebody else. Yeah. I think it limits their impact because of maybe an aversion to selling or an aversion to thinking about. There are a lot of people that have really incredible ideas, and some of them are averse to selling those ideas. And it's interesting what you're talking about when you actually dive into that transfer of energy from one person to the next, how powerful that is and how it can be used in many different ways for good or for bad.
And David Attenborough is the best example of this. Like, most people have watched David Attenborough. He's like in the forest And then he just drops to his knees and he picks up this one flower. And immediately you're interested because he's like going on and on about this flower. It's such a good flower, you know. So I would tell people, you have to be that David Attenborough of, you know, this, like, what's so great about this cover? It's like, oh, look at this metallic shade. And you know, everyone is like, it's almost like when you're outside and there's this juggler or something, and then there's this huge crowd around them and you don't know what's happening, but you're attracted towards the enthusiasm of that crowd. So there is this story, and I forget in what context it is, but I will get to it eventually. They talk about Tiger Woods being in a much better shape than he is now. And he's at this Augusta and he hits the ball and it lands, and I know nothing about golf either. So it lands into this sand trap, and that's it. You know, that's like finished. The game's over as far as he's concerned. He's not number one anymore. And he hits the ball from that sand trap, and then it rolls towards that flag or whatever, the hole that he has to get the ball into. And what this guy describes is the crowd, and the crowd, you know, how they talk about the crowd growing wild, and the crowd is, and it's like shaking as the ball is moving towards that hole. And the writer next day says that I could feel the ground shaking. Literally, I could feel like vibration in you know, in my legs and my thighs. I could feel the vibration. And he said it was that caused the ball to go in. It was not the ball reaching the edge. It hung in there for like 2 or 3 seconds, and it's the vibration of the crowd that caused it to drop in the hole. And that is kind of the enthusiasm that you feel. It's, I need to, if you're not enthusiastic about your product or your service, why should I be interested in it?
You shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of saying.
I know that shot you're talking about too. It's an iconic shot where he chips it out of the sand trap, and it slowly rolls, and then it gets right to the edge, and then it drops in.
Yeah. And really what this guy was talking about is, like, if you want people to really, you know, there are lots of situations where you can say, I'll give you a bonus and you know, whatever. All these things change. People change in different situations. But if you really want someone to do something, you have to be a fan of them. Like if you're a fan of, and he says all these people were fans of that moment of Tiger Woods.
Yes.
That's what caused it to happen. Not the shot was great, but that's what caused. And I think you have to be a fan of, you know, whatever product. You see this in companies. You see, I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Leica, but most people haven't. It makes cameras.
No.
Yeah. A Leica lens costs $19,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And they put it on the market and they sell like 50 or 100 of them, and they're sold up in like 3 days or a week or something like that. Why? Because these guys go nuts. I mean, if you go and search up, you go and look up Leica, and you'll see the amount of like madness there is. Like, you know, they go, oh, because of COVID, we can't produce any Leica cameras. Why? Because Frau whatever hasn't turned up for the last week, and she's the one that grinds all the cameras, and she's the one that goes through the thing. So sorry, we can't deliver those cameras now because of COVID. And it's, you know, Sony's just churning out 17,000 of them with the machine,
yeah.
And Frau whatever hasn't shown up for the last 2 weeks, so you just have to wait.
And all those things work together to create more demand.
Yes,
it's the demand stacks on top of each other, and it's even more interesting and it's more unique, and then the price goes up even more because of the limited demand.
Yeah, Leica prices actually go up after they're sold. So a friend of mine, he told me, "Oh, I bought this for 7,000, but now you can get it for 10,000."
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
what a business.
Yeah,
Sean, what's one question, if you were in my position interviewing you, that I haven't asked you that you would have asked yourself, or that I should ask you?
The thing that small companies and big companies often do is they don't listen to their customer. So the question is, what should I do so that I understand my customer better. And the answer to that is, do not do what you're doing right now, which is writing your Amazon page by sitting at your desk, writing your sales page by sitting at your desk, writing your brochure by sitting at your desk. Because, I mean, I've been a copywriter since pretty much 1990, and I don't write that great copy. I mean, I write copy that will impress you, but the copy that sells comes from the customer. They use very unusual words. They have a different tempo. They have a different emotion. And the best thing the question that you needed to ask me was, how can I improve any kind of result? And the answer is, take a book because you want to make notes, but also take something where you can record it and speak to the customer. And you will find that, A, they are so happy to speak to you. And secondly, they're using language that other customers relate to and that you as a person creating these pages cannot do. I mean, I have seen this over and over and over and over again. People who sit at their desks and write copy, sales pages and everything, they do a good job, and they could do an outstanding job if they just physically went to their customer, or in this case, have a chat with a Zoom chat or whatever.
Sure. It's totally possible. It's to make it happen. It just takes a little bit of structure. I mean, most of the people that are listening to this podcast have some sort of an e-commerce business. You can do it. You can survey your audience, find people who are open to an interview, schedule with them, and then have that conversation.
The thing is, there is a guy called Mark Ritson, Markritson, and he covers this thing on YouTube for Febreze, which is $1 billion brand.
Yeah.
And Febreze was losing business month after month after month because they were running the same kind of ads that Glade and the other competitors were doing, and Febreze charges a lot more. What Procter & Gamble does better than almost any company in the world is that they spend a lot of time. They go with their customers. They see where they're sitting. They don't just have these check boxes that you get in, did you like it? Blah, blah, blah. Because people act in very strange ways. They use your product in completely odd situations, and you have to see how they use it. And then you understand really what makes your product unique, how they're using it, why they're using it, what problems it's solving. Yeah, it's like anthropology, I think, where you're watching someone doing something and making notes. Yeah.
You kind of have to fall in love with that, with the desire to connect deeper and understand why people do the things that they do. And I mean, it's obvious, right? We're talking to you about why customers buy, why clients buy. Your enthusiasm comes out because it's so interesting to you. And that probably leads you to connecting more with people to learn more about why they're buying, which makes you more effective at doing that. And it's this circle that works again and again and gets better and better. Sean, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you hopping on here and chatting with me and diving into this. For people who are listening, and I mean, I already recommended the Brain Audit. I think if you don't have that, you should go pick it up. But any other place that you would recommend they learn about you more?
Well, there's Psychotactics if they want to read. So go to psychotactics.com. And if you want to listen to the podcasts, there are quite a few. Like, just scroll through them, go through the 3-month vacation, scroll through one of them. There are some weird ones like, about energy. What is energy? What is talent? Often business is not just about what you do, but all the surrounding stuff around you. How talented do you consider yourself? Do you believe in inborn talent? How do you maintain energy? What's the difference between energy and exhaustion? So kind of knowing the stuff around you, like even the stuff that we talked about, you can't make other people. I mean, grumpy people are the ones that are on the internet. So they are already grumpy when they woke up in the morning, and that's why they're grumpy. It's very hard to be happy and just go around insulting people. So it's these kind of things that you might want to start with, not even go into any business topics, but just go into these slightly obscure things, and I think you'll enjoy yourself. And then you can go into the business ones. So that's the 3-month vacation.
I had an experience with some grumpiness on Twitter today. I posted something yesterday, and it was a lot of people that were pretty grumpy jumped on it, and it was interesting to see how it was something that I wrote about Facebook, and a lot of people took it personally because a lot of stuff right now is going on with Facebook changes. And it was interesting to see how quickly it went from something I said to something about Facebook to them taking it about themselves.
Yeah.
And it was just where they were at in their state. I know you've done a lot of traveling. You've been all over the world, and you on these trips you take. The last question is, what's one place that you would like to go back to that's on the top of your list?
Oh, this is such a difficult question. Greece. Yeah. I felt most like how I used to feel when I was a kid, when I used to go to my grandmother's place in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And
what part of Greece?
This is, there are these little islands, Naxos, and there's another one, I've forgotten the name, but Naxos, close to Naxos. One of the islands actually Tom Hanks goes to, which is quite close to it. So if you just look up Tom Hanks Greece, and you'll find it's Paros, Paros. So
cool.
Paros is, and I think the reason why I like Greece is because they're very giving. Like the thing you have to, you go there, and then they'll give you something, and then they'll give you dessert, and I like when you say place, I actually think people. And
yeah,
and it's not so much the place. Every place is beautiful. Every place has its own.
It also is very beautiful there.
Yes, but it's just the people. The people are really, when they say come over to dinner, they're not just saying, "Oh, we actually didn't mean that you should show up." They will say, "Sit down and have a drink, and then have a second drink, and why haven't you had your 5th dessert?" That's what I really like about Greece. I've only been there once, but I want to go back.
Well, soon, hopefully it's back to international travel soon.
Yeah.
And Sean, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.